When we talk about starting out as an artist, it can sound as though there is a clearly marked beginning and somewhere ahead of us, a clearly marked destination. We imagine that one day, we might decide to become an artist, develop a recognizable style, develop a body of work, have an exhibition, sell something, build an audience, and eventually perhaps feel that we have arrived. But artistic practice rarely works that way. There is no single moment where you officially become an artist. There is no certificate that tells you that you're ready. There is no universal sequence of steps that every artist follows. Starting out as an artist is much more uncertain than that. It's a process of learning how to pay attention, how to make decisions, how to tolerate failure, and how to keep making work when you do not yet know how exactly where the work is taking you. Perhaps the first question then is not how do I become an artist? Perhaps it's simply what does it mean to begin? Beginning with curiosity, something that catches your attention. It might be a color, a material, an image, a place, a memory, or simply the desire to make something and see what happens. At this stage, you do not necessarily need a grand concept. In fact, one of the most useful things an emerging artist can learn is that you do not have to know exactly what your work means before you make it. You can begin with questions. What happens if I work with this material? Why am I drawn to this image? Why does this particular subject keep returning? What happens when I change the scale? What happens if I stop trying to make the work look good? These questions create space for discovery. Art is not always about executing an idea that already exists perfectly inside your head. Very often, the idea develops through the act of making something. The word practice is important. We often talk about artists as though they possess a special ability. Someone is simply talented, creative, naturally artistic, or gifted. But art is also practice. Practice means returning. It means drawing when the last drawing did not work, looking closely, trying a different material, starting over. The point is not to produce a masterpiece every time. The point is to develop a relationship with the process. Failure can be uncomfortable because we often treat the finished artwork as evidence of our ability. Unsuccessful artwork can still be useful. It can tell you something. It can reveal what interests you, what does not interest you, what techniques need developed, or what assumptions you have been making. In that sense, failure is not necessarily the opposite of progress. Sometimes failure is how progress becomes visible. Finding your voice. Another phrase we hear constantly is find your artistic voice. It can be useful advice, but it can also be misleading. When you're just starting out, you might look at established artists and think that their work has a very clear identity. You can recognize them by their colors, materials, subjects, techniques, or visual language. It is tempting to believe that you need to discover your own recognizable style as quickly as possible. But artistic voice is rarely something you simply find. It's something that develops. It emerges from the choices you make repeatedly. It comes from your interests, your experiences, your influence, your habits, your style, and what ways you respond to the world around you. And importantly, your artistic voice does not have to look completely original from the beginning. Every artist starts somewhere. We all learn by looking at other artists. We borrow ideas, techniques, methods, and ways of thinking. We study traditions, we imitate, we experiment. Eventually, through that process, our influences begin to combine with our own experiences and concerns. The goal is not to have any influences. The goal is to understand your influences well enough to begin making your own decisions. One of the most important parts of becoming an artist happens when you are not making art at all. It happens when you observe, look at exhibitions, look at books, look at films, architecture, photography, design, performance, craft, popular culture, and the world around you. But try to move beyond simply deciding whether you like something. Ask yourself why. What is this artist doing? How have they constructed the image? Why this material? Why this scale? Why these colors? What is the viewer being asked to notice? What assumptions does the work challenge? What happens when you spend 5 minutes with the work instead of 5 seconds? Looking carefully develops your visual vocabulary, and the more you look, the more possibilities you begin to see. Learn to live with uncertainty. Perhaps the hardest part of starting out is the uncertainty. You may not know whether your work is good. You may not know whether anyone will care about it. You may not know what kind of artist you want to become. You may compare yourself with people who seem much further ahead. Social media can make this particularly difficult. We're constantly exposed to polished images of other people's studios, exhibitions, careers, publications, residencies, and success. What we rarely see is the uncertainty underneath it all. We don't see the abandoned paintings. We don't see the rejected applications. We don't see the years of experimentation that preceded the exhibition. We don't see how many times someone wondered whether they should give up. So comparison can give us a distorted picture of what an artistic career actually looks like. Starting out requires accepting that you're allowed to be unfinished. Your practice can be unfinished, your ideas can be unfinished, your skills can be unfinished. You can change your mind. You can make work that does not resemble the work you make 6 months from now. Make your own opportunities. There is also a practical side to beginning an artistic career. At some point, you may want to show your work, meet other artists, apply for opportunities, sell work, teach, collaborate, or participate in exhibitions and projects. But it is worth remembering that an artistic career is not only something that happens when an institution gives you permission. Artists can create their own context. You might organize a small exhibition with friends. You might publish a small book. You might create an online archive of your work. You might participate in a community project, or simply invite a few people to look at what you've been making and talk about it. These things may seem small compared with a major gallery exhibition, but small opportunities can be meaningful because they help you learn how to communicate your ideas, present your work with other people, and understand what kind of artistic environment you want to be part of. There is an important distinction between taking yourself seriously and taking yourself too seriously. Taking your work seriously just means giving yourself enough time and attention to find out what you're capable of. It means documenting your work, keeping notes, saving experimental works, learning how to talk about what you're doing, taking care of your materials, understanding the practical realities of the medium, learning how to receive criticism without allowing that criticism to define your entire sense of self. And perhaps most importantly, it means continuing, because an artistic practice is built over time. One drawing becomes 10, one experiment becomes a series, one question becomes a body of work, one conversation leads to another, one failed attempt becomes the beginning of something unexpectedly interesting. The individual pieces matter, but so does the accumulation. What success means when starting out, it is easy to imagine success as something external. An exhibition, a sale, a grant, a degree, a large following, representation by a gallery, recognition from other people. These things, they are not the only measures of an artistic life. Success might also mean making work consistently. It might mean finally understanding a problem you've been working on for years. It might mean finding a community of people who take your concepts seriously. It might mean discovering a material that allows you to express something you could not express before. It might mean making something that changes the way one person sees the world. Or it might simply mean that you have created a space in your life where you can remain curious. This is not a small achievement. So, if you're starting out as an artist, you do not need to have everything figured out. You do not need a perfect studio. You do not need a definitive style. You don't need to know what your work will mean 5 years from now, and you certainly don't need permission to begin. Start with what interests you. Pay attention to what keeps returning. Make things, learn from other artists. Keep experimenting with what teaches you something. Allow yourself to make bad work. Allow yourself to change direction. Find people you can talk to, and give practice enough time to become something more than just a collection of individual projects. Because becoming an artist is not really about reaching a point where you can finally say, I am a real artist. It's about choosing again and again to remain engaged with the act of making and observing. The beginning is not a single moment, it's a habit. And every time you return to the work, you begin again. Thanks for listening.